coming up.
What I did find interesting, though, Minister, is that in 2018, your government removed the requirement for police background checks, are officially called police clearance certificates from the country of origin, from countries like Pakistan, and Pakistan ultimately is a bit of a high-risk country, to say the least, so it is puzzling that that was done in 2018.
In 2018, the government removed, means it doesn't require the police background checks. That's police clearance certificates from some countries of origin. In the case that we're talking about, Pakistan is included in that, and it turns out that the student that your incompetent predecessor gave a visa to is part of that. You removed the security checks. Your government removed the security checks.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Happy to take your questions.
We'll start our questions with Ms. Dancho. Ms. Dancho, please go ahead. 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? Just making sure this works. Thank you, Minister, for being here, and thank you for your opening kind words. I appreciate that. As we know, we have a very serious situation on our hands, Minister. That's the reason that you are here. Your government has allowed 3 alleged terrorists into our country through the immigration streams that came ultimately from what we've learned from the RCMP through Globe and Mail reporting, came within hours of murdering an untold number of innocent people, Canadians and Americans, in the latest alleged terrorists that's been gained entry into Canada under immigration streams under your watch, sir. And unfortunately, though it's been several weeks since the first 2 and a few days since, or a few weeks since the second iteration, we've yet to find out how this has happened. And to my knowledge, you've made no commitment of how you're going to fix it and prevent it from happening again. What we do know and understand is that your government in the past has directed public servants to fast-track immigration procedures, to cut some corners, bring in people as quickly as possible. And now we have a situation where we have 3 alleged terrorists on our hands, so it is reasonable to believe there could be more. So what specific steps have you taken the past few weeks to ensure no more alleged terrorists can gain entry to Canada through our immigration streams?
Thank you for the question, MP Dancho. As you know, there are a number of elements about this case that I cannot discuss publicly. I would also not assume a number of facts that are not in evidence currently, but again, we take these incidents very, very seriously. I announced in the French portion of my speech that we should come up with a result of our internal investigation within the next 2 weeks. Again, those will be made public. I think the discussion here is to see if and when there was any deficiency, if there was one, whether it is one that is systematic, and then how you then remedy that. What we will disclose to you in the next 2 weeks, obviously we can't disclose today, the investigation is not complete.
So just to confirm, though, you haven't taken any measures to change any procedures whatsoever? Nothing has changed?
As I've said to you, we're currently investigating if and when there were any deficiencies and what measures need to be taken.
With my knowledge of immigration, the procedures are already known. In fact, your department has provided a list of how the procedures are undertaken. So to me, it's very clear, if you can follow the trail over the last number of years, you should be able to determine how it is, for example, that the fact that we weren't able to determine there was a 2015 ISIS video where one of the alleged terrorists was dismembering a prisoner back in 2015 that was circulating the internet, and yet 3 years later he gained entry into Canada, and in fact went through 6 different immigration streams since that time and ultimately gained Canadian citizenship. And in that time, there were 4 red flags flagged for that individual. 3 of them were risk indicators. Obviously, none of them were taken seriously, or not to the extent that he was not allowed to continue down the immigration streams. What I did find interesting, though, Minister, is that in 2018, your government removed the requirement for police background checks, are officially called police clearance certificates from the country of origin, from countries like Pakistan, and Pakistan ultimately is a bit of a high-risk country, to say the least, so it is puzzling that that was done in 2018. This security check was removed, and now we know a student visa from Pakistan gained entry into Canada. Have you reinstated this security requirement, for example? That is an easy step that you could have taken by now.
Again, currently, you know that this individual was an asylum seeker. You know, again, that there are differences with respect to different requirements for and the reliability of police certificates at different stages. They vary in their quality.
Sorry, I may have misspoke, but I'm talking about the student visa from Pakistan, the latest alleged terrorist, not the son, but the student visa from Pakistan.
Again, and this may be within or not within the scope of this discussion, Mr. Chair. Again, the person that the latest alleged individual came in as a student from Pakistan.
Correct.
Again, the details that you have in your chronologies are the ones that I'm at liberty to speak to at this time.
Thank you, Minister. But I'm asking specifically about how in 2018 your government removed the requirement for police clearance certificates, ultimately police background checks from the country of origin, from countries like Pakistan. Now we have a student visa holder from Pakistan who did not receive the police assuming he did not receive the police clearance certificate, unless you can correct me, but that requirement was removed in 2018. So there was a security check removed. That requirement was removed in 2018 from Pakistan for student visa holders. Now we have a situation where your government's brought in a student visa holder from Pakistan who's alleged to be a terrorist. He was on his way to Brooklyn, New York to massacre Jews. And there was a situation where there could have been an additional level of screening that your government removed in 2018. So have you reinstated the security requirement? I'm hearing that you have not done that. I do feel that that's something quite easy that you could do that could provide another layer of security. So this doesn't happen again.
Again, we rely on
Is that not reasonable?
We rely on our security partners to advise us as to the risk profile to take with respect to these
It's just a common sense approach, though, is it not?
Again, you are assuming the reliability and the validity of police certificates. When
I appreciate that, but for permanent
screening
residents
process is a lot more
from permanent
comprehensive.
residents from Pakistan.
Again,
Thank you, Chair. The practice here is that a question is asked and there's sufficient time for the minister to answer. I would ask that that rule be in place so that we can actually hear the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Let's let the minister answer the question.
we are confident in the progressive nature of the screening process. Police certificates can
I do
be
have to
requested.
interrupt. He has said something that's incorrect. Permanent residents from Pakistan are required to provide
Point of
police
order.
certificates.
Ms. O'Connell, on point of order.
Mr. Chair, that's not how this works. The questioner asks the question. The witness has the time to answer, regardless of the opinion of Ms. Dancho. So I'd ask that you implement the rules that we all operate under.
I would agree with Ms. O'Connell on this point. If we could just let the minister answer.
Perhaps he can answer my question on permanent residents.
Who's posing the questions or giving the testimony, but I'm glad
may
to
I
finish
pose
my
the question, then he can finish, and then we're done? I'd appreciate that. I'm sorry, are you the chair? I didn't know.
Are you?
Your time
Are
is
you
up.
the
That's not
chair?
how this works.
Are you
Hold
the
it.
chair?
Can we avoid like crosstalk? So I'm sorry, your time is up. We'll go now.
No, I
to-
have 11 seconds left, Chair.
Can we hear the answer,
I have
perhaps?
11 seconds
I have
left.
3 seconds left.
All right, on permanent residents, are they required for police security checks from Pakistan, yes or no?
As a matter of
Minister may
course,
answer.
yes.
Yes, they are. Okay. Exactly.
Can we hear the answer?
Yeah.
He did answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were a cascade of questions there, Chair. What I would say
One.
is that we are confident in our security screening and the progressive nature of them. We believe that the biometrics that every single student needs to submit with very few restrictions give us the confidence we have, and the officers in question can ask for police certificates. Again, there are questions around the validity and the reliability of
required.
those certificates.
Okay, thank you.
Canadians from minority groups are too often the target of racism and discrimination. I ask that we keep that in mind during this study. Coming to questions, Minister, my first question is, Minister, can you please outline the specific screening measures currently in place to prevent individuals with extremist ties from entering Canada? So can you please elaborate on the portion of this security screening that the IRCC is responsible for, and what happens if IRCC does identify risk indicators on an application?
Chair, point of order, please.
Yeah, point of order.
Thank you. I purposely waited until my colleague was done her question. Could we please get clarification on your ruling about the time to answer? I thought the time allotted to the member is their time to speak and use as they wanted. Would you please make a ruling on the time to answer the question so we don't keep arguing about that going? We had discussions about this last time, many times. Could we get a ruling from you? I don't believe it's in the standing orders that you have to give the same time to answer as you to ask a question. Could you make a ruling on that, please, Chair?
What is that?
So my general practice is to give the witness a chance to answer. If you run out of time right at the end of your 6 minutes, I will generally give the witness, whomever it is, an opportunity to answer whatever question was last posed. I will hold the members to their 6 minutes or whatever the time frame is in the particular instance. Within that within that rubric, it is your time. However, it is, I think, Standing Order 18, as a matter of respect, to give people their, an opportunity to respond properly to the questions you ask. So I will try to adhere to that as well. So we're looking for fairness, a fair question, a fair response, and if a question is asked, the witness should be able to answer the question to as best of their ability.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Saeed, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I asked the question, so Minister respond.
Sorry, Minister, go ahead.
And through you, I would echo the sentiments of MP Zaid. We would not want aspersions cast on the entire Pakistani community because of the alleged actions of one or other individuals, or the Egyptian community for that matter. And it would be lamentable for that to be the case. This is a question of some detail, so I will pass over the rest of my time to Aisha Zafar to answer that. Salma. You're good.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, and through you, Minister Miller. So the security screening process is a trilateral program. IRCC definitely is the first line where we look at individuals before they enter Canada. We screen 100% of all applicants who come into Canada. We have these risk indicator packages, which we did talk about before. Happy to go into further detail on those. Those risk indicator packages are not only for individuals who may be engaged in terrorism. They refer to all serious inadmissibilities in IRPA. So that would include our security inadmissibilities, such as terrorism, being a danger to the security of Canada, someone who may have engaged in acts of violence that would threaten Canadians, but also espionage and subversion of a government, for instance. Other serious inadmissibilities include human or international rights violations, war crimes, or organized or serious crime. So the risk indicators cover all of what we call serious inadmissibilities, of which terrorism might be one. Our officers are trained on the risk indicator packages if they do notice a risk indicator on an application. And again, that risk indicator is like a clue for the officer that there might be more investigation that needs to be done. They will refer it to CBSA and CSIS for comprehensive security screening. Once CBSA and CSIS complete their screening, they will provide back to IRCC a recommendation from a security screening perspective. So that recommendation will either be favorable, which means they have not identified a serious inadmissibility. It will be non-favorable, which means they have. Or it could be inconclusive. That inconclusive would require the officer to gather more information until they could be satisfied and make a final determination.
Are you finding, these individuals are obviously motivated by an ideology to commit these crimes, that they were in advanced stages of planning in some cases, but overall, is your government finding that this radicalization is happening abroad, or is it happening after they've come to Canada, or is it a bit of both? Is there anything you could speak to on that? Because I think de-radicalization efforts are also an important part of the parcel here.
Well, I'd say, speaking very generally, it's probably a bit of both. We shouldn't think that radicalization doesn't occur in Canada. Terrorist networks, criminality networks work together, and they use these as tools to perpetrate horrible crimes on innocent people. And we've seen increased hate, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic hate, particularly in the current context. And that does impact behavior, sometimes of younger cohorts of the population as well, as we've seen in some other apprehensions. And so, to answer your question quite succinctly, a little bit of both.
Since our last meeting, another ISIS terrorist was arrested. A plot was foiled. You mentioned, you alluded to that in your opening commentary with Mr. Khan. You previously told Canadians that there was criminal background checks for temporary residents. There's actually no requirement for a police certificate. So I'm going to go back to that because you were very unclear. In 2018, the government removed, means it doesn't require the police background checks. That's police clearance certificates from some countries of origin. In the case that we're talking about, Pakistan is included in that, and it turns out that the student that your incompetent predecessor gave a visa to is part of that. You removed the security checks. Your government removed the security checks. Now, you know that this guy was arrested. You know that a terrorist plot was foiled with the help of U.S. intelligence. You know that he was off to Brooklyn to kill Jews. Have you removed or have you reinstated that requirement for security checks that you previously told Canadians that were in place?
Again, Mr. Chair, through you, I don't want to, in answer, give the impression that I'm validating a number of the facts that I cannot, or alleged facts that I cannot speak about publicly. I think my question to you, MP Lanceman, is should we assume that were police certificates to have been obtained, we would have apprehended this individual? We are confident in the way our biometric system works, in the progressive screening that operates in our country. And I think we should disabuse ourselves of the notion that Canada is hermetically sealed, and but for one procedure we would have stopped something. It's highly theoretical. It's quite speculative.
It's actually not, Minister. I'm going to jump in because you require those police certificates for permanent residence. Now, whether you know that or not, that's a fact and it's the case. So why wouldn't you require them for student visas? This is how this guy got in. You can ask your predecessor, Sean Fraser. He let him in. And I know that you're cleaning up a mess, and I know that you're cleaning up a mess where I think this government has ruined a generational consensus on immigration. But why do you take them for permanent residence and not student visas? Why is there a different security check if this is the terrorist plot that was foiled under this guy?
Not everyone that comes to this country is entitled to become a permanent resident of Canada or indeed a citizen. We take a progressive risk assessment approach. The approach works. I'm not saying it's perfect. And again, you're assuming a lot of facts that are not in evidence to draw a conclusion that may not have been.
What are you talking about? There was an arrest made for an ISIS plot of a terrorist that was about to kill people. The Minister of Public Safety, during the last time that happened, which was just weeks before that arrest, another 2 people were arrested. Guy was in an ISIS snuff video. He went through 6 different channels of immigration, 4 flags. He was checked 6 times by this country, and he was given a citizenship. Like, what on earth are you talking about? This is 2 terrorists. How can you assure Canadians that there are no more if you don't understand your own department?
Again, let me repeat, and I cannot deviate because, as you'll well appreciate, there is a criminal case.
You talked about it in your opening statement. I'm asking you a question.
Lansman.
Well, you've introduced to this committee a number of alleged facts that I cannot speak to, and I
It's
don't
a
want
fact.
to.
You lied about it on TV.
Again,
Ms.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Lansman, this language is unparliamentary. I would ask you to
I
apologize.
will retract that. You misled Canadians about it on TV.
Again, Mr. Chair, through you, as indicated in the chronologies, I do want to speak to the decision-making of the officers in question that determined that there was no evidence presented to the decision-makers themselves at the time that would have rendered these individuals inadmissible.
So you're missing evidence. You don't require that evidence. Isn't the last thing or the least you can do is require that evidence, given that a terrorist plot was foiled? There has been 2 in the last month and a half. There has been 1 since Minister LeBlanc sat there and said the system is working as it should. Clearly, there's something wrong, and we have to make sure that you can assure Canadians that this won't happen again. And you've remedied nothing.
I'm failing to understand the argument. Is the argument that requiring police certificates would have dispensed of all the investigatory work and the work done by our officers to foil this plot? I would submit respectively, no.
We go now to Mr. Gahir.
I think generally we do have a great immigration system, and tweaks are needed from time to time, and you're certainly making those tweaks now, and they're very welcome. I did want to ask about this particular case, and I do want to make the point that as an office that deals with a very high level of immigration work, that for every one individual that gains temporary access to Canada to visit. There are multiples more that I denied for the merits of the file itself. But I guess I want to ask, for cases where there is limited or unreliable data from the country of origin, how does your department handle that?
It really, I'm going to pass. It's an excellent question. I would ask for an answer that.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, and through you, Minister Miller. So you're right that there are certain places where the information that may be available is less reliable. But our officers need to be satisfied that an individual is not inadmissible to Canada so that they don't pose any threat, they don't have any inadmissibilities. Working closely with our security partners, such as CBSA and CSIS, as well as our partnerships with our Five Eyes and other international partners, we're able to collect information that can help strengthen the inadmissibility assessment of any applicant. If the officer is not satisfied, they can continue to ask for more information. So, for instance, they may require things such as police certificates, employment history, documents that will allow the officer to be satisfied that the individual does not pose a risk to Canada. In addition to that, we collect biometrics. And biometrics are an important part of the immigration system because it's not just for a security screening purpose where we're identifying if there's criminality, but it's also to anchor identity. So it's the first time we might see an individual, and using those biometrics and sharing those with our partners also helps us understand identity and determine if there's any derogatory information that exists on that individual.